You know, when we think of Anne Frank, we usually think of her diary, this incredible beacon of hope from one of history's darkest moments. But what if I told you there's another story hidden in those pages? A much more personal one, about two sisters, Anne and Margot, trapped together, and how their relationship quietly transformed. So let's get into this often overlooked dynamic.
Okay, so as soon as they went into hiding in the secret annex, the differences between these two sisters became, well, impossible to miss. On one side, you have Margot. Everyone saw her as the perfect model daughter. And on the other, you've got Anne, an absolute ball of fire, so expressive and full of life that no tiny attic could ever hope to contain her.
And in this suffocating quiet of the annex, these differences weren't just little personality quirks. Oh no, they created a real emotional gap between them. That tiny space was like a pressure cooker, just magnifying every little thing and making them feel like they were living in two different worlds.
Let's just zoom in on Margot for a second. To the adults, she was the ideal kid. Always calm, super quiet, and just brilliant at her schoolwork. She was the one who was constantly getting praised, held up as this perfect example that Anne was supposed to live up to.
And then you have Anne. She was the polar opposite. Where Margot was calm, Anne was a storm of feelings. She was fiery, so expressive, but she felt completely misunderstood. All she really wanted was for someone to see her, the real her, not just the trouble she caused.
So this constant comparing and contrasting, it created a really tough situation for Anne. It felt like she was always living in her older sister's shadow, constantly falling short of this perfect image that she could never be.
It's a feeling a lot of us can understand, right? That struggle to find your own place when someone else seems to get all the spotlight. For Anne, this was a huge part of her daily life in hiding.
And what is just incredible is how self-aware Anne was about all this. In her diary, she is brutally honest. She admits she's jealous. She wrestles with this idea of both looking up to Margot and at the same time totally resenting her. It's that raw honesty about her own, imperfect feelings that makes her diary so powerful.
But as the days turned into months and the months into years, something started to shift. The crushing reality of their situation led to this totally unexpected moment of vulnerability, a quiet confession that would end up changing everything.
And this is really the core of it all. We see this picture of Margot as always composed, always perfect. But was that really the whole story? What was actually going on behind that quiet mask, day in and day out, in that claustrophobic hiding place? Well, the truth is, Margot's calm wasn't a sign of strength, not at all. It was a performance. Underneath it all, she was pushing down her own fears and anxieties just to be the person everyone expected her to be.
Then one day, Margot just opened up to Anne. She confessed her own fears, how incredibly lonely she felt, and the massive pressure of always having to be the good one. It turns out she felt just as trapped as Anne did, not just by the walls, but by everyone's expectations of her.
And that was the turning point. In that one moment, everything changed. For the very first time, Anne saw past the perfect sister. She didn't see a rival anymore. She saw another person who was suffering in silence, just like her. And that jealousy, it just washed away, replaced by this wave of pure empathy.
So, this moment of shared vulnerability, it became the bedrock for a totally new kind of relationship. It was no longer about rivalry. It was a true sisterhood, forged in the most extreme circumstances you can possibly imagine.
It's almost like you can trace the path of how they reconnected. It all started with them realizing they were both suffering. That led to real empathy. And from that empathy came this newfound respect for what the other was secretly going through. The result? A deep, mutual bond that they'd never had before.
It really is a pretty incredible transformation. They went from a relationship built on distance and jealousy to one built on real connection and understanding. Right there, in that little hidden annex, they had finally, truly found each other.
And their story is so much more than just a family drama. It holds this really powerful, universal lesson for all of us about how people connect when they're pushed to their limits.
This is really the heart of it. That intense pressure of being in hiding stripped away all the surface-level stuff. It forced them to see the humanity in each other, and it completely reshaped their relationship from the inside out.
So in the end, these two sisters who thought they were from different planets, they made this really touching discovery. They realized they'd been on the exact same emotional journey of fear and loneliness and hope all along. They were just walking it in their own ways.
And their story really makes you look at your own life, doesn't it? It makes you ask yourself, when things get tough, when the pressure's on, what do we do? Do we put up walls, or do we find the courage to build bridges instead?